Elex, the latest RPG from developer Piranha Bytes, who are the creators of the Gothic series, the third of which is my joint favourite game of all time. Hell, I made an entire video celebrating my love of it. They've not made a game for a while. The Risen series was in between, but it really, it fell flat. Cause like Risen, but it fell flat. Yeah, we're into that kind of quality humor here, so buckle up. And I and many others have been hungering for them to produce something of the standard of Gothic for a long time, and Elex looked like it could just be that. I've been watching its progress for ages, and it feels like it's being in development forever. So now it's released. The first thing that will grab you, I think, is the actual setup for the world, because it's quite cool. Normal, modern-day-ish Earth hit by meteor that turns it to, well, apocalyptic rubble, but it goes an interesting route with it. The meteor brings with it this substance known as Elex, which the inhabitants of this destroyed world, the survivors, all use for different purposes, and the result is a faction war twixt four factions that you get right stuck proper in the middle of as you explore a quite frankly obscenely gigantic and full world. You can either go full Mad Max with the bandits in the desert, you can go true down-to-earth fantasy medieval RPG with the technophobic magic armor and swords group known as the Berserkers, you can go full mech plasma rifle future technology with the clerics, and it's entirely up to you whom you end up joining. There is the four faction, as I mentioned, there were four, and they are the Alb, of which you were an ex-member. These people infuse the Elex within their own body, and if you survive not being turned into a crazy mutant, it gives you loads of powers, but it does make you have really pale skin, and you kind of lose all your emotions. Which is why our main character's voice actor, I assume, sounds like he's a talking plank. It's one of the first main things that you'll notice about this game. The voice acting and dialogue is lackluster.
And what have you got to lose right now? Nothing from what I can see.
What you say is logical. Your actions and words seem to match. I will trust you. For now.
Every choice you make adds up in this world. The way you speak to people will determine your course in life. Just take a look at yourself. No armor, no weapons, no companions. You've not exactly succeeded in life, have you?
Everything's so stiff, slow, formal, a little bit jilted. It's almost unnatural, like robots communicating how they think people do, and it stands out, and it's everywhere, so you really have to push past that to get into this game. But is it worth doing so? Well, one of the better aspects is what the guy said is true. The actions that you take really do matter. There's a bit of telltale-y choice systems where characters remember and do stuff based on your actions and words, except unlike Telltale, they actually do change things, and the world can really evolve. You can change whole towns and how they are run, earn yourself a reputation that gets you past persuasion checks that you didn't even know were going to be a thing. There's a lot to be said for how things really are impacted by what you do as a player. You're not a ghost passing through a fixed world. You are an earthquake shaking things up and making sure that people will not forget your passing. And that's kind of awesome to be given that sense of agency. And talking of passing through the world, it is quite a huge and densely packed world. There's a lot of verticality because you get given a jetpack and you can freely use it to traverse terrain in a way that's really quite awesome. It's genuinely uplifting to see because I told you this is what we're in. I wasn't lying. Come on now. And it means that they really can play with different terrain layouts and really get you thinking in different ways than you normally would in a typical RPG like this to traverse terrain. And that's really awesome and engaging. The sad thing is that the jetpack does highlight one of the issues, which is the animations and the general flow of the game. It feels kind of stunted. Things snap from one perspective to another. There's no smooth, free-flowing between every given action your character and the enemies take, and it's just so, well, immersion-breaking, quite frankly. So that's another thing that you really have to push past if you want to get into this game. And you may be thinking that we're leading up to, well, no, it's actually not worth pushing past this, but I mean,
this area's restricted. No entry.
We'll see. There's still plenty to talk about yet. One thing I adore is that the cities in this game do feel like fairly large cities. Compared to previous Piranha Bytes games that would have like 6 NPCs and 5 buildings, you do feel quite an appreciation that this is a bustling, large community, an entire faction's home base. There's lots of NPCs, still too few I think for the space, but it's definitely an improvement over anything they've ever done. And wandering around the city and talking to people on mute, reading subtitles, is a really engaging experience. It's cool to see what's going on and find out what's happening, find out how you can help, and help you can. Because like in Gothic, they've gone for the nobody knows who you are, nobody gives a fuck, everyone's just trying to survive. If you want to help me, I'll pay you a little bit. Go get rid of those few little rot balls over there that are causing me some issue. You know, I don't care that you're some hero of this epic world. Whoa! All I know is that you're just Mr. Average Joe walked up for me and looked for some work, and that's what I'm going to give you. No, I'm not going to tell you where the balls are. I think I saw them kind of nearby a couple days ago. You're not going to get a marker on your map. You're not going to get any quest helpers. All you can go on is what I've told you. Good luck. And oh, what's that? You already found the balls before you spoke to me? Well, that's cool. Thanks a lot for doing that. Here's your payment. Ah, see, you completed the quest before I even told you it was a quest. That's neat. And that flexibility really does permeate the world like it did in Gothic. You can approach quests in many, many different angles, completing them in lots of different ways without the game hand-holding you at all. In fact, it doesn't even slightly. It's brutally difficult, in part because the combat is, well, we'll talk about the combat soon, but things will murderize you hard at the start. You have to really claw for experience, for power, earn people's trust, do menial labor that you might not enjoy because you want to feel immediately like an epic hero in these games, and I can get that, but I very much like the average Joe RPG, where I'm just person getting by in world and I'll do what I have to. I don't know why, because, you know, you'd think I'd want something grand for my escapism, but apparently no. All my brain can handle is go find this guard who was supposed to be on duty, but he's not. Alright, that's my lot in life, and it entirely depends on your perspective as to whether that is good or bad quest design. I guess essentially what I love is that Piranha Bytes RPGs and Elex is no different. They managed to create a feeling like I myself have been teleported to this world, and I have to somehow get by. And I don't know anything about how it works. I don't know anyone. No one's gonna give me anything for free. I'm gonna have to somehow find, I guess, work so I don't have to sleep and starve on the street. I think, you know, I'm panicking. And on top of that, you only ever know what your character realistically would know. Ergo, just not having things like quest markers means that it doesn't separate the player and the character. You feel a lot more connected because both of you are on the same level throughout the adventure, and that's something that's very rare to find, and I admire the game for not giving in to more modern design principles when it comes to an RPG and keeping this no hand-holding mentality. Obviously, the grandiose, epic scale, ridiculous stuff happens as the game builds to its 50 to 100 hour climax if you do everything, but, you know, know, that is there, and it's something that you need to be aware of. But the difficulty is high. Things are going to kick your ass a lot at the start, and figuring out some of the quests is difficult because the information is so limited. You have to talk to people, you have to remember what they say, and you have to properly explore and use your eyes to find things as if you were the character you were playing, which is something I always appreciate in these games. And honestly, for all of their flaws, I think that's why they do still have such a cult following, because although they might not be perfect, and they're not perfect, they are still the best at the experience that they offer, which is a really down-to-earth, you know, as much as the setting can be, gritty, actually difficult, air quotes, hardcore RPG, because it has the really cool in-depth skill system as well. When you level up, you get attribute points, and you can put them in any of them, you know, typical stuff like strength all the way to cunning and your intelligence, you know, stats that you might expect, and that's all great, but you can't actually do much with that unless you find a tutor who's willing to teach you how to do something, and the prerequisite of that might be, once you get 30 strength, come back and I'll show you how to handle heavy weaponry, and then you can equip heavy weapons from that point. And it's kind of cool, right? Because it just grounds it a little bit. Your character doesn't summon knowledge out of thin air upon killing a random wolf. They have to find someone who's already experienced and get them to teach them, and there are a lot of skills to learn, all the way from the social side, persuading and lying and battering, all the way to the more, you know, hit things harder with my big stick or wield my weapons with more finesse. And it's a very deep and intricate skill system, and you can really get lost planning and building your character in relation to which faction you chose and how they generally like to fight. So that's all well and good, but what is not all well and good is the actual fighting. It's typical, and I don't like that I say this, but it's true. It's typical Piranha Bytes clunkiness. It's just not great combat. Look, things kind of work. It's serviceable, but I think it's honestly worse than both Risen and Gothic. There's a combo system. If you click again with the right timing, you can do more attacks. Other than that, you have heavy, light, you can block, but there's not a lot of, well, depth to it, but more than that, there's no flow to it. It's so janky. It's just, it feels just weirdly unresponsive, and it limits your tactical options when things just feel off while fighting, and it's hard to explain, but hopefully the visuals are doing an okay job at that, I would hope. And it's definitely one of the weakest aspects. Obviously, as you go through the game, acquire more skills, level up a lot, get more things taught to you, unlock better weapons. It does smooth out a little bit, but you never quite escape from the fact that the combat is kind of intrinsically unsatisfying. However, like in Gothic, this is one of those games that really gives you as much as you give it. It's not a game that will force you to do the air quotes right thing or play in the right way by its mechanics. It will give you a world and it will give you a basic rule set, and you can interact with that how you want. For example, this guy here, I can angle him in such a way that I can just keep spamming and spamming and spamming, and I'm just spamming left click here. I'm not thinking even slightly, and I mean, yes, this isn't great evidence for the combat system being any good, and no, it's not, but the thing is, I'm choosing to do this. Other games, you might argue better games, and certainly that's fair enough, would prevent this from being even something you could do. But the point is, I as a player am playing a game for fun. I'm choosing to cheese this guy, whereas I can easily choose to fight him normally and use the combat system in at least a little bit more satisfying way, do the rolls, you know, push past the weird animation connectors and kind of stiltedness, but you know, I can fight him in more of an actual fighty way and get my ass handed to me because my character's nowhere near strong enough to take him yet. So that's something I really really want to get at. You can walk into a building and abuse the stealth mechanics to steal everything, even though someone can definitely see you, or you can choose not to do that and try and earn things the hard way, the way that makes it more satisfying to earn it. And essentially, the more, I guess, realistic you force yourself to treat the world, the more you place yourself in the character's shoes and do something that actually makes sense, as opposed to deliberately abusing some of the poorer implemented mechanics, the more you do get out of it. Sadly, a few things that I loved in Gothic aren't present, like enemies respawn when they die. Granted, not the exact same ones in the exact same places, but still, you can't go exterminating the entire world. One thing that I do like is you do have to earn reputation, and as I said, your reputation is quite huge in this game. Within your factions, rise up through the ranks, and armor comes as a status symbol because of that, and I very much like that working through something as a goal, and it kind of keeps me motivated in an otherwise very open-ended game that can make you sometimes feel very lost as to what you should be doing right now. I guess essentially what I'm saying, to me, Piranha Bytes RPGs, and Elex is no different, is a rare type of game where the enjoyment you get can vary massively by your mentality while playing, and effectively the amount of fun you have is how much fun you let yourself have. And I realize that sounds really abstract, but I hope you're at least kind of getting what I'm, well, getting at here. And I totally get that this could be seen as a weird balm on what you should just be essentially saying is a bad system. And don't get me wrong, there is definitely aspects that are just objectively bad. But I do think there is merit to the argument that if you play in a way that clearly the devs kinda wanted you to, then you will have a lot more fun than if you go, la la la, I could just spam left click this NPC into a corner, shit game. And well, that is still a valid thing to say. You know what I'm getting at, right? You get as much as you give with Piranha Bytes RPGs. And the thing is, this all said, bad dialogue, bad voice acting, bad combat, a really good idea, maybe not fully fleshed out, but definitely a worth exploring world with a lot of content, and there's just something about it, because I would say objectively this probably is a more bad game than good. And yet, all of this said, despite the cons seemingly outweighing the pros, I still find myself wanting to play it. Whether it's Stockholm Syndrome with this company and its games, something drives me on to keep playing, and it's not something tangible, it's a feeling that comes through to me when I play a Piranha Bytes RPG, and I think that feeling is honestly along the lines of heart. That despite all that is clearly not up to current standards, let's say, there is this undercurrent of a real passion of a small team really trying their best to reach for something that just with a little bit further is truly special. And that right there makes it truly special. And essentially, a game that is not entirely good can still be a really good time, and I think that's an important distinction to make. And the feeling of, oh, this is so close to being something truly special is so permeating throughout that it almost wants you to keep playing just to find out if it does reach those heights to it. But maybe I'm just talking absolute fucking nonsense here, and it's time for me to shut up. Like if you've enjoyed this, guys, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Rage gaming with the video flow, Shenanigans and Overwatch, and his fans all know that every single thumbnail that this man makes without fail makes you do a double take, catching your attention with every verse. See, say that you need healing but you're at his mercy. Get it? Cause it's a pun. On his channel, that's one of the better ones. Widow is venomous, I see no end to this. Cataclysm's imminent when Rage is in his element. Pandemonium is not familiar with irrelevance. Maximum Genji beam, oh so elegant. Jokes so funny, causing you to cry. Editing is quality as the noon is high. Yo, concussion man, shoot to the sky. Cap it all off with a goodbye.